Ms. Thompson,
Present.
Ms. Pearson? Not yet. Dr. White?
Here.
Mr. Nimick, are you here yet?
I am present now. Yes, sir. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Clemens, are you here? I think we might have lost Mr. Clemens.
He's down the hall. I'll go check on him.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, it kicked him. Me and Ms. Roberts are helping him out right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
We lost Mr. Clemens, or what's the story, Becky?
Yes, there seems to be some technical difficulty, but Liz is there helping him to get back on.
I'm back. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Come back. Has Ms. Pearson made it while I was gone?
No, sir.
Okay, let's go ahead with the meeting. Only have two agendas today, two items on the agenda today. Should go fairly quickly. First from Tammy, the budget amendment for 2022-23 school year.
Good afternoon. I'm looking at page 9 in board book. We have a spreadsheet for Fund 420, which is our general fund. On this report, the first column is the board. approved-
Tammy, are you
Yes.
able to turn up your volume or something? It sounds like you're distant. It may just be
Michael?
me.
Can you hear me?
Okay. It may
that
just be me. I don't have my speakers, my usual setup here, so it may
Oh.
just be me.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
You fine?
Okay. The first column in this report is the board approved budget from 2022-23, the beginning of the school year. The second column is our actual expenses as of about 1:30 yesterday afternoon. And the third column is the amendment that I am proposing today. And the final column would be our final budget after the amendment for 22-23. Starting with revenues, we are reducing our overall revenues by 2.2 million. This is primarily due to the decrease in enrollment this year. We've seen an increase in interest revenue primarily due to the Federal Reserve rate hikes that we've seen. And we've also seen a few sources of other revenue from AT&T, some rebates for restructuring our phone lines, and also a dual credit program that we participated in earlier in the year. For FSP revenue, TEA will still be making some slight adjustments anywhere between September and November of 2023 when the final summary of finance is distributed. However, for the purposes of today, we've used the June 9th summary of finance, which is the latest information that is out from TEA. In addition to that, we are recording a $99,000 increase in revenue from the ESSER indirect cost calculation. ESSER is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Fund Relief. And since we have some ESSER money that's unspent as of the end of this year, we are allowed to apply for the indirect cost ratio to cover our administrative costs of using this grant. So the calculation for that is 13.813% of the total that we've spent, which came to $99,000, almost $400. Our actual June year-to-date income statement shows a surplus of $734,000. We have booked our payroll accruals and our reversals for the end of the year, and we've also accounted for another 5% of applicable expenses that may come through in the remainder of the month. It is our hope that most of the expenditures have been accounted for at this time. However, we do still have about $30,000 of POs that are still waiting for actual invoices to be paid. And we are still getting utility payments up through today. So this may lead to a few additional fluctuations in the expenses, and we're leaving the 5% to hopefully account for all of that. So looking down at our expenses, as you can see, we're also reducing our expenses by $2 million to offset that loss in revenue. And going through them by function, in function 11, we are reducing that dollar amount primarily because we used our ESSER dollars to supplement our instructional programs. Function 13, we used Title I money and ESSER money for professional development. And then function 21, we've talked about several times in our meetings that we had gone over in a little bit of salaries. So we're adding a little bit to that function. And function 23, just a little bit of an increase also in the salaries item. And then function 31, we primarily used IDEA B for much of the counseling and special education programs. So we were able to reduce a little bit there.
And Tammy, just to make sure, because I know some folk are looking and saying, boy, it's a lot of red, but the all of it's red. There's the ones in the parentheses is where we need to move money, correct?
We're moving money everywhere there appears to be a dollar value. We are moving money.
Well, I mean, we're over in those areas where the parentheses.
In the dollar amounts that are positive, I mean, we're adding to these expenses.
Yes, okay.
For our function 33 health services, we spent less than we anticipated on our hearing and vision. And for function 41, we're increasing about 12% there for additional salaries. And then function 51 is facilities, and we're not adjusting that because history has shown us that we will continue to receive some utility and repair expenses through the end of June. And we'd like to go ahead and leave that dollar amount there for facilities. And then security is function 52. And we are adding a little bit there because we had some security audits that came down from the state level that were handed down after we approved the budget in the beginning of the year. And so we've had additional expenses there that I think has been very prominent in the news that all districts are tasked with. Function 53, we are still receiving invoices from Bazaar Solutions that may lead to some fluctuations. We haven't received all the monthly infrastructure there, so we are just leaving that, just taking away a little bit there, but we're expecting some more invoices. And then community events, and we had a lot of campuses use their school activity funds for those events, and then the final adjustment for debt service, which is our amortization of our consolidated loan, is a little bit less than we anticipated. This last item here under net assets released is we will go into when we discuss the Fund 240 amendment. It's directly related to the loss from the child nutrition program, which is mandate that it must be absorbed in our Fund 420. But we came in less than we anticipated for that loss by $31,000. So that's also good news. Does anybody have any questions on Fund 420 or the moving around of those dollars? We know that Charter Indicator 10, as well as the audit budgetary comparison schedule, looks at budgeted dollars to actual dollars, and they do use that 10% as the standard of measure. So that's why we're trying to keep some additional dollars in there so that we are fine with that schedule when it comes down to the audit. And based on our current financial information, we are projected with these numbers to be in full compliance for our program intent code. This means that we have spent the expected dollar amount for career and technology, special education, state compensation, bilingual, and also dyslexia students. And as you can see from the bottom line in that last column, we're expecting a surplus of, just a little over $5,000. Since we have $13.7 million in net assets, our goal has been to utilize all of our available funds for our programs, since we do not need to build more net asset reserve. So we have bought additional laptops and some new instructional programs for CTE and instructional resources, so that we don't end up rolling additional money into our net asset balance that is already quite large. Our administrative cost ratio with this final amendment will be 0.1853. We are allowed to use our ESSER dollars, which do not appear on this compensation, to calculate our administrative cost. So based on this, plus what I've projected our ESSER dollars to have been spent for the year, we should get 6 out of those 10 points. Anything else for Fund 420? Okay, if we can scroll to the next page. This is our child nutrition program. We see that revenues are about $80,000 more than we expected, which is attributed to the supply chain assistance grant and also the equipment grant that was used to purchase 2 reach-in freezers this year. And so we're thankful to Amy, Ms. Wood, for applying for all of these items and getting them for RMA and allowing us to utilize those funds throughout the year. Our expenses are currently $22,000 over budget. And I'm requesting that 5% allowance to account for any possible unpaid food resources and also a little wiggle room for the audit. It still reduces our overall loss from $93,000, what we projected, down to about $62,000, which is the amount that has to be absorbed in Fund 420 for the loss. So we did really good there at reducing the loss that has to be absorbed. And our expenses in Fund 420. So our biggest expense is, of course, food, which accounts for about $125,000. Then we have payroll expenses for half of an FTE for our Director of Child Nutrition, and travel and professional development, about $7,000. And a point of service program that we use for our free and reduced. It's an application program that we always buy out of the CNP program. That accounts for the $175,000 where we are today. And that's all I have for the functional amendment. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? If we don't have any questions, I would entertain a motion that we approve this budget as presented.
And Ms. Thompson, you'll be happy to know we gave Showers $125,000 of the surplus money to get this big NCCES program for career in tech, so.
I'll make such motion. I move that the board approve the budget amendment for the 2022 and 2023 fiscal year.
Francis White, I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second that we approve the budget, this budget amendment is presented. Vote, Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Pearson, I see you're here now.
I'm here. I abstain.
Dr. White,
Vote yes.
Mr. Nemick,
I vote yes.
Robert Clemens, I vote yes. Motion carries. Is that with abstention, 4 yes and 1 abstention, is that? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, I believe Carl.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Clemens. So as the board knows, RMA has been pursuing a piece of property in Fort Worth to relocate our existing Fort Worth campus and also add some central office space. We have found property and we have presented the LOI at the last board meeting, and at this board meeting, we would like to move forward with the board resolution, which is required by the bank, and also the draft copy of the PSA that we've presented to the seller, and we're waiting on the seller to sign off on that. But just to give you the background, it's the administration is requesting that the board approve a resolution for the purchase of real property and all improvements thereto located at 5051 Trail Lake Drive and 5401 Woodway Drive, Fort Worth, Texas, 76133, being approximately 4.02 acres of land from Foundry Commercial LLC for the price of $2,250,000 plus the cost of the transaction as set forth, and that certain real estate sales contract and related attachments. As presented, RMA has initiated its investigation of the property, and subject to a satisfactory completion, RMA's investigation, RMA seeks to purchase the property as set forth in the resolution. And once again, I've included a copy of the board resolution, the letter of intent, and the sales contract. And so our recommendation is that the board approve the resolution authorizing the purchase of the property and approval of real estate sales contract and related attachments as presented.
Carl or Dr. Anderson, I'm for this proposal period. Just a question though, do we have a plan right now of whether we're going to pay for this purchase out of fund balance, whether we're going to finance it through the bank, or do we have a plan right now, or do you have something you want to share with us?
We are
We were
currently,
going to, Carl, did you want to talk on it? Go ahead.
sure, we're currently working with Frost Bank to for the purchase of this property as well as the one in Amarillo, Texas. They would both be put into a single note. We're working on the exact details of that. We're talking about taking out a temporary loan that would cover the purchase of both pieces of property. And then once the construction starts, there'd be a second loan that would cover the construction cost. And then at the end of that process, we would be rolling all of these expenses into a tax-free bond is what we're looking at right now.
From historical account, using a single note, is a financial gain for us. Is that correct, Carl?
Yeah, yes, in our previous ventures of the 5 campuses that we own, we actually purchased those on a 5-year or it's a 20-year amortization with a 5-year note. And once that ballooned, we went to the tax exempt bond, and we ended up with a 3% interest rate on those 5 pieces of property. And we're trying to do a very similar maneuver with these properties. I don't know that it's going to be 3%, but it's going to be much less than what the current market rate is at the moment.
Thank you.
And I just might add, in both of these cases, Amarillo and Fort Worth are two of our oldest campuses and probably the most in need of renovation or relocation in this case.
Any other questions or comments? I want to rush you. If you're looking at it and thinking about it, just, let me know.
I'm still looking through it, but I don't have any questions so far.
I don't have a suggestion right now. I just think that at some point we think about how much we're making on our fund balance or cash position and what interest we're paying, and if we might want to reduce our debt some by using some of the fund balance.
And we can talk more about that when we get to the financing portion of this.
Sure.
Work with Tammy.
Yes, I'm just suggesting at some point in the future we sort of see what we're making on what we have invested, what we're paying, and then beyond that, just looking further down the road about what we still have a campus, the major campus in Houston that is leased property. Is that correct? Do we have something else that's still leased?
We have the one in Houston that's still a leased piece of property, and we have extended our lease opened up a new lease in Midland. The lease in Midland would be cheaper to lease it than it would be to buy and renovate a new property. But the one in Houston, that will come up for the 2025 school year. So about the time we're finishing up these 2 projects, we'll be looking at the Houston property.
Entertain a motion that we approve this. We're approving a board resolution, a letter of intent, and a real estate sales contract all in one motion. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'll make the motion again. I move that the board approve the resolution to purchase real property for the Fort Worth properties located at 5051 Trail Lake Drive and 5401 Woodway Drive, Fort Worth, Texas 76133, and more fully described in the board's June 22nd, 2023 agenda, which includes the authority of the superintendent and or his designee to take all actions necessary to inspect and, if in the best interest of RMA, to also purchase the property and tender all costs associated with the transaction as more fully described in the resolution.
Rose Thompson, second.
We have the motion in a second. Vote. Dr. White,
Francis White, yes.
Ms. Pearson,
Same.
Ms. Thompson,
Rose Thompson, yes.
Mr. Nimitz,
Donald Demick, yes.
Robert Clemens, yes. Motion's carry. I think that finishes our business for the day unless there's something that someone else wants to bring up. I noticed we did have in this stack of stuff,
Say again?
yeah, we had it in this stack of stuff, we had a calendar for this year that we talked about the other day. I assume that's pretty well what we talked about.
Yes, you all approved that calendar at the last meeting.
Just information purposes.
Yes, and let me also remind you guys, today is the last day for central office to before we go on our 2-week vacation. So schools will be closed, central office will be closed. And we'll be back on duty July the 10th. And Mr. Clemens, we'll see you in Fort Worth. We have our meeting with Dr. Lee. And you have that calendar invite.
I'm sure I do.
So just let me know.
Sounds good. All right. I'll call the meeting adjourned and I'll see y'all next year.
All right. Thank you. Y'all have a great rest of your week. Good weekend.
Y'all enjoy your break. It's well deserved.
Thank you.